Snowbirds aren't coming back. Hotel rooms are empty. Shops near the border shuttered. But this isn't just about a few vacation cancellations. Canada's silent tourism boycott is gutting entire American towns. Places once booming with Canadian dollars are now facing a cold economic storm they never saw coming. Some states are losing billions, others they're watching lifelines like ski resorts, golf courses, and beach towns shrivel into ghost zones. Which state is bleeding the most? And could your local economy be next? Stay with us, because these are the 10 U.S. states being crushed hardest by Canada's quiet retreat. Number 10. Hawaii. Paradise is losing its lifeline and fast. Hawaii, the dream vacation for thousands of Canadians each winter, is watching its snowbird season melt away. Bookings from Canadian tourists dropped by 14% through mid-February 2020. That may not sound like much until you realize how deeply Hawaii depends on international visitors. Hotels in Maui half full. Local tour guides struggling to find clients, and rental condos that once booked out a year in advance now sitting empty. Tourism makes up nearly 1/5 of Hawaii's entire economy. When just one market pulls back, the ripple turns into a wave. Now imagine that wave hitting small businesses, restaurants, and workers who count on Canadian dollars just to get by. No warning, no backup plan. Can Hawaii survive if its sunniest customers never return? Because in the islands, when the planes stop coming, everything else starts to crack. Number 9. Texas. It is one of the most visited states by Canadians, and now it is one of the hardest hit. Texas, with its Sunbelt cities and winter getaways, has quietly lost over $1.4 billion United States dollars in tourism revenue just from Canadians pulling back. That is not a guess. That is what the United States Travel Association is projecting if this trend keeps going. Think about it. Fewer Canadian snowbirds means fewer hotel stays, fewer meals in local restaurants, and fewer dollars flowing into cities like San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston, and those ripple effects, they are already being felt by small businesses, seasonal workers, and entire counties that depend on international tourism to survive. Could this be the start of a bigger collapse in southern tourism? Before we reveal the next state, and trust us, it is worse, make sure to subscribe. That is what helps us keep digging up stories the mainstream misses. Number 8. Maine. Charming coastlines, lobster shacks, tree-lined highways that stretch into the distance. But behind the postcards and peaceful scenes, something's breaking. Maine's economy is deeply entangled with Canadian traffic, especially the kind that crosses the border by car. And in 2025, that flow didn't just slow down, it plunged. Between February and April, Maine saw 166,000 fewer crossings from Canadian visitors compared to the same period last year. That is a jaw-dropping 26% drop. For a state that relies on cross-border tourism, especially during spring and early summer, that is not just a red flag, it is an alarm bell. Hotels in Bangor are reporting longer stretches of empty rooms. Outlet malls in Kerry seeing fewer license plates from Quebec and New Brunswick. Small towns that usually gear up for Canadian day trippers are suddenly cutting staff, shortening hours, or closing early. And it is not just about tourism. Many Canadians come to Maine for healthcare, seasonal work, even cross-border shopping. All of that spending vanishing. Border towns like Kalala and Holton were already walking a tightrope economically. Now they are slipping. When Canadian drivers stop coming, local gas stations, diners, and corner stores lose their best customers fast. Could it bounce back? Maybe, but only if travel sentiment improves, and that's a big if. Right now, tensions between Canada and the United States are making some Canadians think twice before vacationing across the border. Maine has always been friendly, familiar, and just close enough for a weekend getaway. But now the welcome signs are still there, and the parking lots are empty. So here is the real question. How long can a state built on seasonal visitors survive? When the season never really starts, and if the boycott deepens, could Maine's quiet towns become the next ghost towns? Number 7. Washington. At first glance, everything looks normal. Cars on the highway, ferries in the distance, coffee shops buzzing. But look closer at the border towns, and the cracks start to show. Washington state is facing a quiet crisis, and it starts with fewer Canadians showing up. For decades, residents from British Columbia poured into Washington for day trips, shopping sprees, gas fill-ups, Seahawks games, or just a cheaper night out. But over Family Day weekend in 2025, 3 of the main border crossings told a very different story. Peace Arch down 45%, Pacific Highway down 34%, Sumas down 11%. These are not just numbers. They are empty hotel rooms, silent checkout counters, and canceled dinner reservations. And the hardest hit, small cities like Blaine, Lyndon, and Bellingham, where Canadian dollars have helped power local economies for years. Think about it. When a third of your cross-border traffic disappears in a single weekend, how do you keep the lights on? Retailers along Interstate 5 have already reported steep drops in weekend sales. Gas stations near the border, many of which relied on Canadian drivers, are losing hundreds of customers weekly. Even tourism businesses near Mount Baker are seeing fewer out-of-town rentals, fewer ski pass sales, and fewer snowbirds booking winter retreats. Some are calling it a temporary slump, but others see a pattern and a warning. Washington has always been a top destination for Canadians, but now with the boycott growing and cross-border sentiment shifting, it's no longer a given that they will return. What happens if these numbers keep falling? Could northern Washington towns go from bustling to boarded up? Before we reveal what state got hit even harder, don't forget to subscribe. That is what keeps us digging deep, asking hard questions, and uncovering stories that others overlook. Because as you are about to see, things are only getting worse from here. Number 6. Michigan. Stand on the edge of the Ambassador Bridge and you'll see it. A lifeline that once pulsed with Canadian traffic, now thinning out by the day. Michigan isn't just a neighbor to Canada. It's a gateway, a magnet, and lately it's losing grip. Cross-border visits from Canadians, once a dependable boost to cities like Detroit, Port Huron and Sault Ste. Marie, have dropped sharply in 2025. Fewer shoppers, casino goers, and overnight guests. Walk through downtown Detroit and you'll hear stories from hotel managers, bartenders, and shop owners. We used to count on Windsor folks every weekend. Now it's quiet. Casinos in particular are feeling the sting. Canadians made up nearly 20% of Detroit's gaming revenue before 2020. But now border delays, economic concerns, and rising U.S.-Canada tension have shrunk that number. In Port Huron, things aren't much better. Locals say you can spot the difference in parking lots. More empty spots, fewer Ontario license plates. Outlet malls, once bustling with Canadian bargain hunters, are now scaling back staff during weekends that used to be peak business hours. And this is not just a border town problem. Canadian money has long trickled deep into Michigan's economy. From auto parts and manufacturing contracts to joint tourism between the Great Lakes, when that slows, everything feels it. Could it reverse? Possibly. But not without repairing trust, addressing inflation, and warming up the diplomatic chill. Until then, Michigan remains exposed, economically vulnerable to every dip in the cross-border flow. Here's the truth. If the Canadian boycott continues to grow, Michigan may lose far more than weekend traffic. It could lose the very backbone of its international economic connection. And the state that's next on this list, it's facing something even more dramatic. Number 5, Arizona. The golf courses are still green, the skies are still clear, but listen closely in Arizona's Sunbelt towns and you'll hear the silence. Thousands of Canadian snowbirds used to flood into Phoenix, Mesa, and Yuma each winter, turning sleepy suburbs into bustling mini-cities. Now RV parks have open spaces, condo rentals are sitting vacant, and local businesses are quietly starting to panic. In 2025, Canadian travel to Arizona dropped by 22% during peak season. That's tens of thousands of missing visitors and with them millions of dollars in spending. Restaurants in Tucson that once catered to loyal Canadian customers are trimming staff. Golf resorts near Scottsdale are slashing prices. Even car dealerships and healthcare clinics, two industries snowbirds fuel in the off-season, are reporting noticeable slowdowns. Here's the part few are talking about. Canadians made up one of Arizona's most stable tourism markets. Unlike spring breakers or domestic road trippers, snowbirds stayed longer, spent more, and supported communities for months at a time. Losing them, that's not just a dip in business. It's a structural hit to the state's economy, and the reasons they're staying away. Some say it's rising political tensions, others blame higher prices, border delays, or stricter entry rules. But whatever the cause, the impact is real and growing. Places like Yuma, where Canadians used to make up more than 30% of winter tourism, are seeing noticeable revenue drops. Even local newspapers are reporting the change. Fewer maple leaf flags, fewer Ontario license plates, fewer diners asking for the usual. So what happens when Arizona's most dependable visitors simply stop coming? Before we dive into the next state, which may be in even deeper trouble, don't forget to subscribe. That helps us keep uncovering the stories mainstream outlets skip. And trust us, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Number 4. New York. The border looks fine. The skyline still shines. But head north toward Buffalo, Niagara Falls, or Plattsburgh, and the cracks begin to show. New York is not just a global hub, it's one of Canada's favorite U.S. playgrounds. And right now that relationship is breaking down fast. In early 2025, Canadian visitation to New York dropped 25% year over year. And here's the shocker. Western New York took the hardest hit. That means fewer cars crossing the Peace Bridge, fewer shoppers packing outlet malls, and fewer families booking weekend getaways just across the line.
For cities like Buffalo, this is more than just a tourism dip, it's a warning. Canadians once fueled a steady stream of revenue, day trips, sports events, cross-border medical visits. Now the foot traffic has slowed and businesses are feeling it. Go to the Walden Galleria Mall on a Saturday afternoon and staff will tell you it's not what it used to be. Some Canadian customers gone. Gift shops near Niagara Falls reporting revenue drops
between 15 and 30%. Even hotels near the border are seeing bookings shrink, especially from Ontario guests. And this ripple effect reaches deeper. Plattsburgh, a small New York town that once branded itself Montreal's U.S. airport, is now struggling to fill flights. Canadian flyers were once more than 50% of passenger traffic at Plattsburgh International, but with travel sentiment shifting, those seats are going empty. Why does this matter? Because for regions built on cross-border flow, Boycott doesn't just dent revenue, it alters the local economy. From Rochester to the Thousand Islands, towns that once counted on Canadian cash are facing a harsh new reality. The dependable neighbor is staying home. And the next state on this list, it is facing a collapse in tourism unlike anything it has seen before. Number 3, Nevada. Bright lights, endless slot machines, streets packed with tourists from around the globe. But lately there's a strange calm in the crowd. Nevada, especially Las Vegas, used to be a magnet for Canadians. In fact, Canadians made up one of the most reliable international groups visiting the Silver State. But now they're vanishing. In 2025, Canadian tourism to Nevada dropped by 28% in just the first 4 months of the year. And it's not just flights or hotel bookings. Casino floors are quieter, show seats are going unfilled, and the ripple effects are growing fast. Step inside a resort on the Strip and you'll hear whispers from staff. We used to see waves of Canadians, now we're just hoping they come back. In places like Laughlin or Reno, where winter visitors from Canada once boosted the off-season economy, things are worse. RV parks are reporting cancellations, seasonal rentals are staying vacant. Why the pullback? High exchange rates, growing political tensions, and the rise of travel alternatives within Canada itself. But that's just the surface. The deeper issue, Nevada counts on Canadians. In Las Vegas alone, nearly 1 in 10 international visitors were Canadian before 2020. And they weren't just tourists. They were repeat visitors, loyal customers, high-spending gamblers. Without them, the financial model of many resorts becomes shaky, especially with American visitors tightening their belts due to inflation. Even smaller industries are feeling the strain. Wedding chapels, helicopter tours, luxury shopping, each one now scrambling to make up the gap. And here's what's most alarming. This isn't just a bad season. It's a shift, one that could force cities like Las Vegas to reinvent their entire visitor strategy if they want to survive. Before we show you the next state on this list, don't forget to subscribe. These insights take time to uncover, and what's coming next? It could shock even longtime experts. Number 2, California. Palm trees, Pacific sunsets, Hollywood glitz. But here's the twist. Canada's fading interest could cost California billions. This state was once the crown jewel of Canadian tourism. From Vancouver to Toronto, families flocked here year-round. Disneyland in winter, wine country in spring, Pacific beaches all summer long. But in 2025, the tide shifted and fast. Canadian arrivals are down 21% statewide, and in some regions like San Diego and Santa Barbara, the hit is even deeper. Local tour operators, hotel managers, and airport authorities all report the same thing. Fewer bookings, shorter stays, lower spending. That's a big deal. Canadians are not casual travelers in California. They're premium spenders. They rent cars, they book guided tours, they dine in high-end restaurants. And now they're pulling back. In Los Angeles, high-end shopping districts like Rodeo Drive are seeing measurable dips in foot traffic from foreign buyers. Napa Valley wineries that once welcomed tour buses full of Canadians scaling back tastings. Even ski resorts near Lake Tahoe report softer bookings from Alberta and British Columbia, two longtime visitor strongholds. The reasons? They're layered. Currency struggles, diplomatic tensions, and rising travel costs across the board. But the impact, plain to see. California's tourism economy is one of the largest in the country. But pull just one thread like Canadian tourism, and the unraveling starts quietly and spreads quickly. So, what happens when a top-tier visitor base walks away? For California, the answer may already be showing up in closed storefronts and falling room rates. And the next state on this list, its economy isn't just rattled, it's being restructured from the inside out. Number 1, Florida. Sunshine, beaches, theme parks. But pull back the curtain, and Florida might be the biggest casualty of Canada's tourism slowdown. Why? Because no other U.S. state has bet so heavily on Canadians showing up every single year. From Fort Lauderdale to Sarasota, from Orlando to Naples, Canadian tourists have been the lifeblood of Florida's winter economy. In fact, Canada sends more visitors to Florida than any other foreign country, contributing over $4 billion United States dollars in spending annually. Or rather, they used to. In 2025, the numbers tell a different story. Canadian arrivals are down nearly 25% compared to pre-pandemic levels. And unlike other markets, they haven't bounced back. The ripple effect. It's everywhere. GF Coast condos sit vacant through the high season. RV parks and golf courses report record low bookings. Even iconic attractions in Orlando are seeing a shift. Not just fewer visitors, but smaller average spending per trip. Local restaurants, rental agencies, and beachside motel, all built to serve the snowbird rush, are tightening belts or closing doors. Part of it is economics. A weaker Canadian dollar, plus rising U.S. prices, makes Florida vacations harder to justify. But deeper forces are at play too. Changing travel trends, younger generations choosing Europe or Asia, a growing number of retirees staying home. And for some Florida towns, especially those heavily dependent on seasonal Canadian traffic, the loss is more than financial. It's cultural. Entire communities, from real estate agents to ice cream shops, were built around one idea, that Canada always comes back. But what if they don't? Because this isn't just a bad season, it's a wake-up call. And Florida, once the darling of international tourism, is suddenly learning what happens when your most loyal guests stop knocking. This list isn't just about numbers, it's a warning. When international ties break down, the fallout hits local businesses, families, and entire economies. From Florida's fragile coastlines to Hawaii's isolated paradise, the ripple effects of Canada's tourism retreat are real and growing. If your state made this list, it's time to ask tough questions about resilience, diversification, and what comes next. If you found this eye-opening, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video. It helps us keep digging deep, connecting the dots, and bringing you stories others overlook. Stay tuned, because the next trend might hit even closer to home.